Urgent update from Catalonia, and 3 simultaneous fronts around Barcelona. Lamine Yamal's injury, a conflict with the Spanish Federation over his national team call-up, Deco's sharp words about the failed transfer of Nico Williams, and a new wave in the Negreira case. All this is happening at once, right as Hansi Flick's team prepares for a crucial stretch of the season without its young leader. Today we'll break down what's really behind Yamal's pause, why tensions have reignited between Barça and the Federation, how the club explains the collapse of the Nico deal, and why Negreira Jr.'s testimony strikes at the club's legal defense line. These aren't just headlines. It's a systemic test of Barcelona's resilience across medicine, management, and law. Breaking update on Lamine Yamal. Barcelona has officially announced that the winger is again experiencing pain in the pubic area after the match against PSG, and he will be out for the next 2-3 weeks. He will definitely miss Sunday's game against Sevilla, and his call-up to the Spanish national team for the World Cup qualifiers against Georgia and Bulgaria has been cancelled. He's been removed from the list. The schedule is clear. The matches against Girona in La Liga and Olympiacos in the Champions League are also in doubt. The club hopes to prepare Yamal for El Clasico on October 26th, but Hansi Flick sounds cautious. This is not a simple muscle injury, and the recovery time is hard to predict. According to the coach, over the next few weeks, Lamine will work with the recovery group, gradually increasing the load, without any guarantee that he'll be ready in time for the Real Madrid match. The injury has a long context. Back in September, during the Spanish national team camp, Yamal first felt groin discomfort and then missed several Barcelona matches. He recently returned, played against Real Sociedad and PSG, but after the Paris night, the pain returned. Another issue is the tension between the club and the federation. According to Spanish media, on Thursday, Lamine personally called Luis de la Fuente and asked not to be called up for this international window, saying, "2 weeks of rest will do me good." The reaction of the La Roja coach, reports say, was harsh. If he can play for Sevilla, he can play for the national team. This caused frustration at Barça. Deco contacted Eder Carranca, but reportedly, the tone was also unfriendly. Against this backdrop, the national team still announced its squad including Yamal, which the club perceived as a provocation, and almost immediately, the medical update with a 2-3 week break was released. Flick had already publicly criticized the federation for letting the player appear in previous matches while receiving injections. De La Fuente replied that he had expected more empathy, but Hansi stood firm. "I protect my players." Essentially, the issue is about controlling the workload of an 18-year-old player with an extraordinary number of minutes. This concern is echoed in a recent FIFPro report. By adulthood, Yamal has already played an abnormally high number of matches for both club and country. Experts remind that the body continues to develop until around age 25, and systematic overload increases the risk of chronic injuries. Unsurprisingly, Barça is ready for a tough conversation with the federation and would prefer to keep Lamine under medical supervision during the October break. The conclusion for now is simple. The official break is 2 to 3 weeks, but the actual timeline depends on how his body reacts to the workload. Barca's priority is the player's health and the long season ahead, not chasing any particular fixture. How do you think clubs should handle young stars' participation in national teams when chronic pain is involved? Share your thoughts in the comments and support the episode. We'll continue following Lamine's recovery and how Barça reshapes its attack for the upcoming matches. The story of Nico Williams and Barcelona is a perfect example of a summer saga where each side tells its own version. Sporting director Deco has, for the first time, explained in detail why the transfer never happened, and his words differ noticeably from what was said during the summer. According to Deco, it all started not in Barca's office but on the player's side. It was Nico's agent who approached us. When a player of that level asks for a meeting, we talk. But for some reason the player did not accept the terms we offered. Then he went further. The club put its position in writing, refused clauses that, in Barca's opinion, imposed limitations, set a deadline, and received no response. No mistakes, we don't allow anyone to dictate terms to us. It's not about registration guarantees. Just don't change demands after negotiations begin, Deco explained in an interview with Mundo Deportivo. He also added another nuance. Nico wasn't the exact profile they were looking for. He can cover both wings, but doesn't offer the number 9 profile, while Ferran Torres was already moving into a central striker role. Against this backdrop, Barça shifted to alternatives and signed Marcus Rashford on loan. The short-term impact was immediate. The Englishman, with goals and assists, helped keep Barcelona at the top of the table after 7 rounds and guided the team through the start of autumn without setbacks. Luis Diaz was also on the shortlist. Deco himself admits that negotiations were more complicated and solutions had to be found. But returning to Nico, the picture remains ambiguous. On one hand, we hear lines like, "We weren't chasing him. His agent approached us," and "not our profile." On the other, summer statements in Catalonia are easy to find with just a few clicks. Joan Laporta at the end of June said he was ready to trigger the release clause. "If a market opportunity arises related to the clause, we're ready to do whatever it takes." Deco himself at the time stated that the wing position needs strengthening, that Barça had essentially only Lamine and Rafinha, and that if Nico's circumstances are right, we'll try. He has a release clause. Now the message is different. Not our profile. The agent contacted us. The contradictions are obvious. There's also the Basque side of the story. In Bilbao, Athletic stood firm on its terms and filed a complaint demanding verification of whether Barça, given its financial constraints, could even register new players. According to sources, the Catalans refused to include a termination option in case of registration issues, while Nico himself was worried about playing time in the autumn. With international goals ahead, he didn't want to sit on the bench until winter. The result was a U-turn, a record long-term contract with Athletic, essentially following the path of his brother Iñaki, who once signed a 10-year deal, a salary increase, and an updated release clause. Later, Spanish media added more details. Barça didn't want to wait indefinitely and switched to another target, Dani Olmo. Reports claim everything is agreed on personal terms, with only negotiations with RB Leipzig remaining. Meanwhile, inside Athletic, calm prevailed. The club assumed Nico would return to training and stay. The logic is clear. Balancing a career step and loyalty to the club that raised him was important to Williams, and he resolved it in Bilbao's favor. Ironically, Nico's start to the season has been difficult. Just 1 goal and an injury he's still recovering from. Some in Catalonia are already whispering, maybe it's for the best we didn't sign him. In the summer, Barça was publicly looking at Williams and discussing his clause. But by autumn, Deco was saying the player wasn't the right profile, and that the initiative came from the agent. In Bilbao, they stood their ground and secured their asset with a long-term deal. That's the conclusion for now. Barça got a winger here and now through Rashford's loan, while for Nico, it ended in a long, happy outcome for Athletic. And fans will keep screenshots of those summer quotes, just in case this story starts its 2nd season in the next transfer window. Barcelona is once again in the spotlight over the Negreira case, and this time the focus is on the testimony of the former vice president of the referees committee's son. According to Marca, Javier Enriquez told the court that he did, in fact, prepare referee reports for the club and received about 6,000 to 7,000 euros for each, roughly 60,000 in total. He also said he was unaware of his father's work for the referees committee, called such a connection unethical, and emphasized that the 7.5 million euros paid by Barcelona to his father between 2001 and 2018 were not for reports. He did not specify what they were for. These statements strike at the core of Barça's defense. Former club presidents Josep Maria Bartomeu and Sandro Rosell insist otherwise. According to them, both the first team and the reserves received refereeing consultations before and after matches, services the club paid for, but not to influence referees. Why would we need anyone's help if we had the best team in the world back then? Rosell asks logically, adding that such practices existed in the club long before his tenure and that he did not change them. Whom will the court believe? Negreira's son, who essentially challenges the report version, or Barcelona's former presidents, for whom that version is clearly convenient? José María Enríquez Negreira himself, it should be noted, is not testifying due to health reasons. Meanwhile, Real Madrid has joined the case as a private prosecutor and, according to the Spanish press, intends to seek the harshest possible punishment for Barcelona. framing it as a matter of principle for Spanish football as a whole. Real is compiling its own dossier, gathering controversial refereeing episodes from its matches, and reportedly plans to send a summary to FIFA once the case concludes. Within the club, there's a fortress mentality. Florentino Perez is convinced that many in Spain hold bias against Madrid, which only strengthens his determination to see the case through. Barcelona, for its part, continues to insist that the payments to Negreira were solely for refereeing analysis and not for attempts to influence decisions. This version is publicly maintained by current President Joan Laporta and his predecessors. But inside the Catalan club, another high-profile story is brewing, one that could finally split the once united front of former executives. According to media reports, Laporta has officially accused Bartomeu of financial fraud and causing the club approximately 30 million euros in damage. The Barcelona court has already summoned Bartomeu as a suspect. The accusation is based on a report commissioned by the club from the investigative agency Kroll, which cites inflated commissions of up to 33%, shell companies invoicing the club, and questionable payments across several deals. One example is the transfer of Malcolm. A €10 million commission was documented only after the transfer had been completed. The report also mentions overpayments to lawyer José Ángel González Franco in operations involving Neymar and Griezmann, as well as the €15 million paid to Atletico Madrid to settle disputes over Griezmann's transfer while he was still under contract with the club. If these allegations are proven, the risks for Bartomeu personally are serious. The club, however, positions itself as the victim. The current board emphasizes that it was the management decisions of the previous era that pushed Barça into financial crisis. Legally, the Blaugrana claim they face no direct threat. The accusations concern specific former officials. Thus, two layers of proceedings are unfolding simultaneously. The main Negreira investigation, where the son's testimony contradicts the ex-president's version, and a parallel blow against Bartomeu from the current Barcelona leadership over financial misconduct. Real Madrid, meanwhile, is increasing pressure both procedurally and through the media. How will it end? The court will decide. But one thing is already clear. Regardless of the outcome, the reputational damage for Barcelona will be significant, and Spanish football will gain a precedent defining the boundary between analytical services and improper influence. For the Catalan club, the priority now is to prove that today's Barça is legally transparent and managed differently from yesterday. In essence, Barça now lives in several timelines at once, healing its future, explaining its past, and trying to stabilize its present. Hansi Flick is losing a key player. Deco is smoothing over summer tensions, and Joan Laporta is once again forced to answer for the mistakes of a previous era. But it's precisely such weeks that define a great club's character, when it's not only about playing beautifully, but also about enduring pressure off the pitch. What do you think? Should Barça be firmer in protecting Yamal from the national team? And do you believe the club can truly restore its reputation in the Negreira case? Share your thoughts in the comments. Support the episode with a like and a subscription. More twists and major stories from Catalonia are on the way.